वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Let us offer our salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, the yoga of meditation. Verse number 19, Yatha Deepo Nivatastho Nengate Sopama Smrita Yogino Yatayuttasya Yunjato Yogamatmanaha. As a lamp placed in a windless place does not flicker, that is the figure used for the disciplined mind of a yogi practicing concentration on the self. The flame of a lamp cannot be made steady in a windy place. So, you cannot make your inner consciousness steady as long as the winds of desire play upon it. You must withdraw to a center where no earthly attachments and affections can invade you. If you have to succeed in meditation, then must you eliminate the ego of desires and concentrate upon the one supreme Atman. It is the ego that causes all the problems, and it doesn't allow you to dwell upon the Atman. Eliminate the mind, the ego, the desire, self. It belongs to the lower level of consciousness. Rise to the higher level, buddhi. There is the windless place. Be poised there and concentrate on the Atman, and you will achieve Dhyana Yoga and be bright with the brightness of the light of this Spirit. When all the doors and windows of a room are kept open, where the lighted lamp is kept, the wind blowing through these openings flicker the lamp. Not only that, the light may even be put off. In the same way, the temptations entering through the uncontrolled sense organs may cause the mind flickering and restless, making unfit to focus on the Atman. The yogi controls the mind and does not allow wandering of the senses. Thus the unflickering mind is firmly fixed in Atman. Any slightest desire in the mind shakes the mind, and you will not be able to focus properly, fully on the Atman. So the mind should be able to be fixed on the Atman completely for sufficient length of time. Then only you will experience the glory of the Atman within. So our task should be how to make this mind free from all desires. At least when you are sitting for meditation, Give suggestion to yourself that let me not entertain any desire when I am meditating on the Atman. Atman, also any Ishta Devata which we are worshipping as a chosen deity. The Atman takes the form of the chosen deity. So, the indwelling Atman is nothing but our chosen deity. So he has to be approached with full mind, with the mind which is totally free from all the impurities and imperfections. Then you will be really experiencing the bliss of the Atman. Even the slightest desire is enough to disturb the mind. So, our task should be how to control these desires. Sri Ramakrishna said in the Gospel, one devotee, Ishan, who was with him, Sri Ramakrishna gave instructions to him. Look, you ask me, why don't you feel stern renunciation? There is a reason for it. You have desires and tendencies within you. The same is true of Hazra. In our part of the country, I have seen peasants bringing water into their paddy fields. The fields have low ridges on all sides to prevent the water from leaking out. But these are made of mud and often have holes here and there. The peasants work themselves to death to bring the water, which however leaks out through the holes. So here, desires of the holes. You practice japa and austerities, no doubt, but they all leak out through the holes of your desires. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. He said further, they catch fish with a bamboo trap. The bamboo is naturally straight, but why is it bent in the trap? In order to catch the fish. Desires are the fish. Therefore, the mind is bent down toward the world. If there are no desires, the mind naturally looks up towards God. Do you know what it is like? Sri Ramakrishna tells further. It is like the needles of the balance. On account of the weight of lust and greed, the two needles are not in line. It is lust and greed that makes a person stray from the path of yoga. Haven't you noticed the flame of a candle? The slightest wind makes it waver. The state of yoga is like the candle flame in a windless place. And Sri Ramakrishna tells further how nicely he has described the function of the mind, the cause of restlessness, why we are not able to do meditation properly. So here Sri Ramakrishna is telling further, mind is dispersed. Part of it has got to Dhaka, part of it to Delhi, and another part to Kuch Bihar. That mind is to be gathered in. It must be concentrated on one object. If you want 16 annas worth of cloth, then you have to pay the merchant the full 16 annas. Yoga is not possible if there is the slightest obstacle. If there is a tiny break in the telegraph wire, then the news cannot be transmitted. You have no doubt in the world. What if you are? You must surrender the fruit of your action to God. You must not seek any result for yourself. But mark one thing, the desire for bhakti, that is love of God, cannot be called as desire. You may desire bhakti and pray for it, practice the tamas of bhakti and force your demand upon the Divine Mother. But anyway, there is no way to concentrate on the indwelling Atman unless you practice control of the distractions of the mind. Particularly when you are practicing meditation, you become more aware of how much the mind is causing disturbance. Sometimes you feel so terrible, you get up from this night, today I can't meditate properly. Once it so happened, so Brahmaji was meditating at Dakshineshwar Kali temple, chapel, and that particular day somehow he could not focus the mind. He was struggling and becoming more and more restless and sad because he could not gather the mind properly. So he was sincerely feeling the difficulty of focusing the mind, not able to do. Next, in that position, fortunately, Sri Ramakrishna came there and saw Brahmanandaji struggling for concentrating the mind. Sri Ramakrishna came to know immediately and simply went and touched his head. That's all. All the disturbances are gone. Mind was totally calm and tranquil, and Brahmaji could continue meditation most gloriously, feeling immense joy in meditation. That is, he was struggling sincerely and he was very earnest. So, Guru's grace acted upon. Look, here is a disciple struggling very hard. So, he is a recipient of the grace. So, Guru's grace flows there. It solves the problem. It is like that. But the point is, you have to control. You have to make effort. You have to march onwards. My walking will not help you walk yourself onwards. If I walk, I go forward, but you will be in the same place where you are there if you are not walking at all. That means everyone, every individual has to make sincere effort, how much time it may take. That's the truth. But one should not stop struggling. If you stop struggling, it becomes much more difficult later on. Through struggling itself, you have found out how difficult it is. And if you stop it, the mind becomes more stubborn and it goes in its own way. There is a famous episode, probably you might have heard of Vishwamitra, a great rishi he was, Brahmarshi. But he did not become Brahmarshi all of a sudden. Through intense struggle, he achieved that state. He came to know the glory of the power Vasishtha Maharshi exhibited. And he was born Kshatriya, he was a king, but he felt his powers are useless and worthless. He makes a very famous statement when he was defeated by Vasishtha, when he was fighting with him for some reason. The story you can read in the internet. And he says, Digbalam Kshatriya Balam. Brahma Tejo Balam Balam. Brahma Tejas, that is the real power. This Kshatriya Bala is useless. Dik. Yes, very scornful. And then he made a strong determination. I must rise to that level. I must become Brahmarshi like Vasishtha Maharshi. It is not ordinary resolve and it is not very easy task. It is like climbing the Himalayan mountain. Well, because he was strongly determined, he achieved that goal. So, he undertook fierce penance, went did meditation on the bank of a river for several years. So because of this penance of his austerity, God gives powers. God gives the reward immediately. Whether you want it or not, He gives. It is for you to take it or reject it. But He gives. And here, when he did austerity for several years, Brahma came and raised him to the level of Rajarshi. So, among the kings he is considered Rajarshi, royal sage. So, again he continued meditation for several years. Then Indra, the king of the heavens, attempts to test the austerities of this tapasvi. So he sent one of the most beautiful heavenly apsaras. Her name is Menaka. She was sent by Indra to disturb the meditation of Vishwamitra, to seduce him. Well, there was in the corner of the house, there was, in the corner of the mind, there is some slight weakness of desire. So he falls in love with that Menaka and stays with her for many years, lost all his self-control and pious credits. So Vishwamitra, before he became Vishwamitra, his name was Kaushika. After he got Brahmarshi, then only he was named Vishwamitra by Brahma himself. Well, Kaushika finally realized how he has downfallen. So he goes again to make tapas, and several years he did tapas. Then Brahma acknowledges the sincerity of the Kaushik and makes him Maharshi. So he rose from Rajashri to Maharshi level. But Brahma warns him that he has not become a Jitendriya yet. That means he has not controlled his passions thoroughly. A kind of warning he gave and went away. So, when he was doing several years more tapas, again another heavenly damsel was sent by Indra to disturb his meditation. And that was Rambha. And he became very angry why these damsels are coming and disturbing him. So he goes to another bank of the river in another direction and spends some more time in meditation. Now, at that point, Indra comes there to test him. How many tests he has to pass through? He comes to him as a poor Brahmin, begging for food, just at the time when Kaushika was ready to take his food. after fasting for so many days. But at that point of time, when Kaushik was about to take the master of food into his mouth, this Brahmin came and asked for food. Kaushika instantly gives his food away to Indra and continues his meditation. So that is the final. He finally masters his passions, refusing to be provoked by any of Indra's testing and seductive interferences. So finally, Kaushika's yogic power is at a peak. At this point, Lord Brahma came along with Indra and other devatas and declares this Kaushika now has become qualified to be called as Brahmarshi. He is equal to Vasishtha and names him Vishwamitra, the friend of all, for his unlimited compassion. And when Vasishtha came to know that Vishwamitra had attained this highest achievement, he embraced him with great love. That's the way it is. So, the point is, we have to control desires. We have to make the mind free from desires. However difficult it may be, we have to do that. Without relinquishing desires, it is difficult to experience the glory of the Divine Self. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra sevatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati. Verse number 20. When the mind restrained by the practice of yoga attains to quietude, and when seeing the self in itself, he is satisfied in his own self. Once he reaches that experience of seeing face to face with the Atman, he gets fulfillment of all desires. In other words, he doesn't desire anything. That's the state. Through constant practice of disciplines followed by dispassion, mind is able to concentrate fully on the Atman and experience eternal bliss. Ignorant people divert their mind to sense objects and consequently they suffer. The devotee Prahlad prays to the Lord to grant him love towards him, just as the ignorant love the sense objects. For worldly people, enjoyment of senses with sense objects is purpose of life. That's a common feeling of people. If you ask, immediately they say, oh, the life's purpose is to enjoy. Let me enjoy. Let me think of God later on. That too in a very haphazard way. Later on. That later on may not come at all. He may die. Anyway, that's the common expression of the people. That means the desire to enjoy is foremost. They think life is going away without enjoying. What a great loss. Like that they weep and they wail and they suffer a lot because they didn't have enjoyment. Whereas for the yogi, the realization of his inner self, the embodiment of everlasting peace and bliss is the goal of life. In fact, it is said, if a person realizes his divine self, all the enjoyments people could get through the sense objects are multiplied infinite times, becomes equal to the joy of the experience of the divine self. There is incomparable joy. That's why in the Samadhi state, mind merges there. It doesn't want to come back. It is fully satisfied. That's why Sri Ram also says, that one attains that total absorption, his mind becomes full of Atman only. And the person doesn't stay longer, maximum 21 days, then the body talks by itself. The soul is not aware of the body at all. It's fully focused on the Atman and it's joyful and experiences the heavenly bliss. As the famous Upanishad says, Maneva Manushyanam Karanam Bandha Mokshayoho Bandhaya Vishayasaktam Muktaye Nirvishayam Smritam. Undoubtedly, it is a mind that is the cause of man's liberation and bondage. The mind that is attached to sense objects leads to bondage, while that which is free from them leads to liberation. That's the famous statement of the Upanishads. So, they all say mind plays most important role in everyone's life. You are as what your mind is. If your mind is bad, you will be bad. If your mind is good, you will be good. So, that shows how much care you must take to keep the mind pure. The mind is like a restless child. It wants to run away. So Brahmanji says, don't get worried about that. The nature of the mind is like that. That shows mind is active, mind is functioning. That is the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to run. But you must bring it back again and again and apply it to the meditation of the Lord. Don't worry. If the mind runs 10 times, bring 10 times back. And think of Sri Ramakrishna 10 times more. Go on this way for 2 or 3 years, and then an inexpressible joy will fill your mind. If you are honest and sincere, you will feel the glory of the meditation. It takes time. It takes time. This apparent universe which you see is within the domain of the mind. The mind is the author. The mind has conjured it up. It cannot go beyond its own domain. Behind the mind of which we are aware is a subtle spiritual mind existing in seed form. Through contemplation, prayer and japa, this spiritual mind develops, and with its unfoldment a new vision opens. This subtle mind also cannot reach God, the Supreme Atman, but it leads you near Him. At this stage, the world loses all its charm for the aspirant. He remains absorbed in the consciousness of God. So when he is totally absorbed in the meditation of the Atman, he attains Samadhi. The mind is susceptible to suggestions. It learns whatever you teach it. If through discrimination you can impress upon it the joy and fullness of life in the spirit and the folly of worldly attachments, then your mind will devote itself more and more to God. The way of studying and purifying the mind is to retire into solitude, control all cravings, and engage yourself in contemplation and meditation. The more you occupy the mind with holy thoughts, the greater will be your spiritual unfoldment. Another meaning of studying the mind is, another way of studying the mind is to let it wander, but keep watch over its workings. After some time, the mind gets tired and comes back to find peace in God. If you watch your mind, the mind in turn will keep watch over you. Give your body and mind to worldly enjoyments, and the world will destroy them both. Devote them to God and His service, and you will enjoy bodily health, peace of mind, and spiritual joy. Through japa, the mind inclines towards meditation. Thus the aspirant gradually and naturally moves towards his ideal. Think to yourself, this distracting thought is immensely harmful to me. It will be my ruin. Impress the idea again and again upon your mind. The mind is extremely susceptible to suggestions and will learn whatever you teach it. The easiest way to purify the mind is to retire into solitude, control all cravings, and engage yourself in contemplation and meditation. The more you occupy the mind with holy thoughts, the greater will be your spiritual unfoldment. Just as a cow yields much milk when it is well fed, so when the mind is fed spiritual food, it will yield greater tranquility. Spiritual food consists of meditation, prayer, contemplation, and japa. Make your mind strong through the observance of continence and the practice of meditation. Because we are dissipating energy in so many ways, so we are making the system terribly weak. And with that weak constitution, we are unable to do anything. Concentration, effective concentration is not possible unless the body and mind are strong. So keeping them strong and healthy is very important to have good meditation. One devotee, his name Atul, he asked Sri Ramakrishna, Master, how can we keep our minds on God? Sri Ramakrishna said, Abhyasa Yoga, the yoga of practice. You should practice calling on God every day. It is not possible to succeed in one day through daily prayer. You will come to long for God. How can you feel that restlessness if you are immersed in worldliness day and night? You go to the job, whole day you will be working, you come back, then again you run to nightclub. As if the day wanting is not enough. And spending the whole day in the nightclub, drinking and doing all sorts of things. Come back, tired, exhausted. Again the story repeats the next day, same way. So, we are making ourselves unfit. And afterwards we cry. That won't help. Because we keep crying only. So, formerly Jadhu Malik enjoyed spiritual talk. He liked to engage in it himself. But nowadays, he does not show that much interest. Why? Because he surrounds himself with flatterers day and night and indulges in worldly talk, gossiping. Bondage and liberation are both in her making, Sri Ramakrishna says. Her means divine mother's making. By her maya, worldly people become entangled in lust and greed. And again through her grace, they attain their liberation. She is called Savior and the remover of the bondage that binds one to the world. Verse number 21. Sukham atyantikam yattat buddhigrahim atindriyam veti yatra nasaivayam sidaschalati tattvataha. When the yogi feels that infinite bliss, which can be grasped by the pure intellect and which transcends the senses and established wherein, he never moves from the reality. Once he got that experience of the divine glory, he doesn't want to come back for any reason. And he is very stable and is not moved from that reality. So here it is very clearly said, the Brahman is of infinite bliss. Atyantikam Sukham. That's called infinite bliss. It is boundless, ever existent. In Chandogya Upanishad it is said, Yo vai bhuma tat sukham ma nalpe sukhamasti. That means such unbroken happiness we can't experience in temporal things. Second point that is given out in this verse, it is beyond the senses. People who are slaves of the senses cannot experience the happiness of the Atman, but it is grasped by the pure intellect. When the intellect is thoroughly purified, it ceases to be a sense and becomes transformed into Brahman itself. The intellect acts like a sense to the one who is externalized, but for the one who is focused internally, the intellect doesn't act like a sense. As Sri Ramakrishna teaches in the Gospel, a salt dole was asked to report back about the depth of the ocean. The salt dole went into the sea and became one with it, and so it could not report back. In the same way, the intellect, by constantly thinking about Brahman, loses its identity, becoming one with Brahman. That is, becomes Brahmakara. The whole mind is nothing but Brahman. In that state, question of coming back doesn't arise at all. So the yogi, well established in concentrating on Atman, enjoys immense bliss and would never retreat from that infinite joy. Swami Brahmanandaji and all other disciples, they had wonderful experience of the glory of the Atman, because they all had training by Sri Ramakrishna. In front of Sri Ramakrishna, they practiced spirituality and achieved the goal during the lifetime, showing to the people that it is possible to experience the glory of the Atman while we live in this world, not after death. After death, who knows where we go? Nobody tells, nobody knows also. Simply we rely upon some scriptures. They say like this, they say like that. The best thing is, get whatever you want while you are alive. That's the point. So, Brahmanandaji is very emphatic about that point. He tells, be up and do it, waste no more time. The senses are now strong and they must be kept under control. This is a difficult task, no doubt. But if you practice meditation continuously for some years, you will find peace and bliss and enjoy the fruits of your practices. Even after 1 year of steady practice, you will find some result. Swami Shivananda, another director of Sri Ramakrishna, said, repeat God's name, meditate on Him and pray to Him from the bottom of your heart. Then only you will have bliss. It's called Bhajanananda. That is, by doing prayer and worship, you get a kind of joy inside. When one goes on repeating the name of the chosen deity with intense love, one becomes gradually filled with an ineffable bliss. When that bliss becomes continuous, it is also a kind of meditation. Meditations are of various kinds. Go on meditating on the blessed, effulgent form of the Lord with the greatest love, and imagine that every recess of your heart shines with the light emanating from His form. As you go on thinking thus, you will feel that your whole being becomes suffused with inexpressible joy. Gradually, the form also will get dissolved and you will have the feeling of a kind of bliss associated with consciousness. Swami Shivananda says further, all doubts have their lodgements in things outside. The more the mind becomes indrawn and the more it approaches the innermost core, the more free it becomes from doubts. Then pure bliss reigns supreme. The mind becomes suffused with divine love. Then Swamiji says further, yoga and bhoga, union with God and sense enjoyment cannot go together. One cannot get any taste of the bliss of Brahman unless he gives up the happiness of this world. You have to spend your time in meditation on Him, repeating His name, recollection of Him, reading about Him, reflecting on Him, and prayer to Him. Then only will you get real bliss and peace in life, and your taking refuge in Him will be fruitful. God is full of love, full of bliss. The more you can think of Him, the more blissful you will be. When the ideas of time and space are eliminated, then all that remains is bliss. alone, existence, consciousness, bliss intensified. When the mind transcends name and forms, you come to the acme of realization that everything is full of bliss, everything is full of consciousness. As the activity outside diminishes, the activity inside increases. For the mind of the supreme bliss is nowhere else but within. Desire begets misery. To be without desires is bliss. Swami Premanand said, there within the heart of everyone, the ground has to be consecrated, for it has been defiled by the profanity of worldly desires and pleasures. There on that consecrated ground, let a temple of divine communion be raised and the overflowing bliss of the supreme good reign. Infinite bliss from within, that is the idea. Let the devotee be flooded over by the bliss from within. When the narrow little eye goes, the real will manifest itself and you will know bliss. If you can but gain pure love, you will know bliss and peace. Swami Turiyanji said, realization, oh, how wonderful it is. The mere thought of the Lord fills one with joy. And he who can measure the bliss of seeing Him face to face. Swami Adbhutanji said, that bliss cannot be compared with any joy you may find in this world. It is inexpressible. Worldly happiness is the product of Maya. Maya operates within the three states, waking, dreaming and dreamless sleep. But beyond those three is another realm that is called Turiya, which is extremely difficult to reach. The bliss of that realm is free from Maya. You know how sweet is the joy within Maya? Ordinary people are enchanted by it. They do not even think for a moment how immensely sweeter is God, whose Maya is so sweet. Nothing in this world is valuable except bliss. Do you know why people want money, property, wife, children? Because they think they will get physical and mental happiness from them. So they are ready to work day and night for them. If they would divert that energy toward God, they could get the permanent, genuine bliss of Satchidananda instead of the happiness of the world. Maya herself is acting as the operator. She loves to raise waves of desire in the mind and does not like to still them. But God takes charge of the soul which is not bound by Maya. When God guides a person, an uninterrupted current of happiness, peace and bliss flows in his mind and no other waves of thought can be raised there. He becomes one with that unfathomable, waveless ocean of Satchidananda. Swami Ramakrishna said, Ananda or bliss is the best definition of God. God is Ananda. Inside the body there is desire and greed. Inside the mind there is doubt. Inside the world there is change, there is death. Go beyond these and you will find peace and bliss. Until you go beyond them, you can never realize what peace and bliss mean. God is infinite bliss and all other happiness is finite and perishable. Hence nowhere but in Him can true happiness be found, a happiness that has no break. If you want to have real bliss, give up vain fretting and fuming, and instead of criticizing others, criticize your own self and try to eradicate whatever evil there is in you, and thus becoming pure and spotless, at last be perfect even as the Father in heaven is perfect. So like that, the glory of the Atman is well defined in this verse. Once we get into that experience of the glory of the divine self within, once we get into that experience, then our spiritual journey is over and we'll be enjoying everlasting peace and bliss. And you'll be overwhelmed to share that joy with others. Once you experience that state, There is no more wavering of mind, there is no more disturbance of the mind, and there is no more falling from the highest ideal. You have reached the ideal, there is no more falling. You have reached the peak of spiritual realization. So let us try to focus on these points and control the mind, control the senses, and try to become more and more desireless. Always feel desire to have the vision of God, desire to love God, desire to pray Him, to offer worship. That desire is not a desire that binds you, but that desire takes you towards liberation. Let us focus on these points and practice spiritual disciplines to the best of our capacity. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanurvardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Let us offer our salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.